Now, after 1.5 hours of practice, we usually take this session to gather, collect, understand a bit more in detail what we have been practicing. And therefore, this session is called Listening Supportive Factor Session. And that is something that the Blessed One has recommended. Whenever we walk on the path, it should be supported by five factors. One of them is listening supportive factor. And after the listening supportive factor, we will take a few minutes for the discussion, and that is called discussion supportive factor. So today, the 14th of November, we are doing our weekly session. And in this session, we usually select one discourse of the Buddha, and we try to understand that in the light of our practice. So we have been discussing this discourse called Relay Chariot Discourse. In Pali, we call it Rathavinita Sutta. And for those who are joining today, we have covered quite a bit of this sutta, but I will try my level best to give a brief summary before I start the today's area of the discussion. The Rathavinita Sutta, or the Relay Chariot Discourse, is an unplanned discussion. It's a discussion due to need, or not a need, a desire, or thought that arose in the mind of Venerable Sariputta. When Venerable Sariputta was with the Blessed One asked a question from some of the monks who came to see him, whether there is a good leader who is leading them. And then Blessed One explained the qualities of that leader. He said he should be modest, contented, secluded, unentangled, has aroused persistence, should be virtuous, he should be a concentrated person, he should have the discernment, he should have released his greed, hatred, and delusion, and he should have the knowledge and vision of that release as well. And not only he possesses these qualities, he should also be encouraging his students, inspiring his students, advising his students to follow the same, develop the same qualities. And then all the monks jumped up and said, yes, there is one whose name is Punna, and he is also called son of Mantaniputta. So the Blessed One was delighted, and so was Venerable Sariputta. And Venerable Sariputta thought it would be great to meet this monk and have a chat to him and tell him that his disciples are so pleased with his way of explanation and way he leads his students. And time passed, and once Venerable Sariputta heard that this particular monk, Venerable Punna, has come to see Venerable the Lord Buddha, and then Venerable Sariputta chased him, and then met him and started asking few questions. The questions he asked were, are you living this holy life under the Blessed One? Then Venerable Sariputta said, Venerable Punnamantaniputta said, yes, I'm living this holy life under the Blessed One. Then Venerable Sariputta started asking few questions. The questions were, are you living this holy life for the purification of virtue? Or are you living it for the purification of the mind? Or are you living it for the purification of the view? Or are you living it for the purification of perplexity? Or whether it's for the purification of what is and what is not the path, or is it for the purification of the way, or is it for the purification of the knowledge and vision of the release? And there are bits, sometimes we feel some questions that nobody would be able to understand except for the first one or two. But these questions are very relevant and valid for those who walk on the path. So for each of these questions, Venerable Punna said, "I'm sorry, my friend, no, 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 no," was his answer continuously. And then Venerable Sariputta asked, "Then why are you living this holy life under the Blessed One?" Then he said, "The purpose of my living this holy life is for the total unbinding through the release of clinging into the five aggregates." And then Venerable Sariputta once again related the questions he asked to this total unbinding. And then I'm not going to explain what total unbinding at this stage is, because it will divert the discussion to something else, which we can discuss sometime later. Then he asked the same questions he asked earlier in relation to unbinding. He started asking, is purity in terms of virtue the total unbinding? Or is the purity in terms of mind the total unbinding? Or is the purity in terms of view total unbinding? Is purity in terms of perplexity total unbinding? Is the purification of what is and what is not the path total unbinding, etc.? He kept on asking. Again, the answer of Venerable Punna was, "No, my friend." And then Venerable Punna took the steering wheel into his hand and said, "These things, just asking questions like this cannot be understood. Let me give you a simile." And then he gave the simile of this relay chariot. And he said, suppose the king in this kingdom, which is Kosala kingdom, wants to go from Savatthi to another town called Saketa. And then it is so far away, and he can't just use one chariot, and he's arranging 7 chariots, and the first chariot will go to one town, and then from there he takes the second one and goes to the third, and so on and so forth. And in that way, the questions you are asking cannot be considered that the life is one of them, or the total unbinding is one of them, but one leads to the other. He said purity in terms of virtue is for the sake of purity in terms of the mind, and purity in terms of the mind is for the purification of the view, and the purification of the view is for the purification of perplexity, and then so on and so forth for the 7 questions he asked. And these things we have discussed in detail in our previous discussions. And if you, those who are joining today, if you really want to get a bit more details, of course, we have given a lot of details in previous discussions. You can go to our YouTube. You can search Samahita Australia, and there we have a separate section for English talks. So if you go to that section, you will have our talks on this discourse, as well as other talks that we have done when we were doing retreats and periodical sessions. So today I'm going to start from 3rd or 4th purification, which is purity in terms of knowledge and vision of the way is simply for the sake of purity in terms of knowledge and vision. Yeah, purity in terms of, sorry, it's not that. It's purity in terms of what is and what is not the way, not the path, is for the purification of the way. So when we were discussing this, we have discussed this as well in detail, but I'm going to refresh that once again. When we walk on the path, we will be doing our mindful walking and mindful sitting. And when we do our mindful walking and mindful sitting, what we do is we try to see the qualities of the object we have selected. It may be, if, for example, if you take the breath and we take our attention to the breath and try to see how do we feel the in-breath, and try to see how do we feel the out-breath. And by trying to pay our attention to those things, we will be bringing more and more information. We will be able to bring more and more information of that object. So when we see in-breath and out-breath, we will be able to see how they not only just the qualities of in-breath and out-breath, such as you may see in-breath is when it enters, you may feel that it is a bit cold, and when it goes out, you may feel that it is warmer. And sometimes when you keep on observing it, you may feel the beginning. This is how the beginning of the breath happens, and this is how it matures, and this is how it stops, and then this is how the out breath starts, and like that you may start seeing the general characteristics of the object that you have selected, and that is called the full understanding of the known. Full understanding of the known. There is something that you know, and you have the understanding of that known. And this is when you have this. Sukhi hotu, I appreciate very much. Sukhi hotu. And when you continuously observe this, then it leads to another phase. That is called the Tirana Parinya in Pali, or in other words, it is the full understanding as investigation, or full understanding of the judging. So when you go for that phase, what you will understand is, again, you will understand the general characteristics. Now, not of the object as such, but you will see the general characteristics of the reality. The realities, as we know, are the impermanence, non-self, and the suffering. And you will start seeing them. And when you see them, there will not have a board, there will not have a signpost to say that this is impermanent, that this is non-self, and that this is suffering. But instead, you will see the breath that you are observing is gradually becoming subtler. And you may see the walking that you started with bit of a speed is gradually settling, and you are getting slower, right? So, or in other words, sometimes the breath that you are observing, although you are observing at the entrance of the nostril, after some time you may observe the breath not at the entrance of the nostril, you may feel it in the tummy, or you may feel it at the entrance of the nostril, you may feel it at the in the chest, or you may feel it in the tummy, or when you keep on observing, when you see this phase, you may start feeling the whole body, and things start to change. And this changing nature, when you see, that is the impermanence. And the breath that you started to observe now is changing, going into different facets, but you just keep observing. And that the decision that you make to continue your observation is called the understanding as investigation. Now it is not just observing the breath. Now you are letting the investigator to do the investigation. The investigator is the mindfulness. The mindfulness has gone into the body and it is doing its job, and you are allowing that to happen. So this is a very crucial point in the practice, because this is when you will have to exactly decide whether you go what is and what is not the path. Because when your attention develops to this stage, certain imperfections are arising. In other words, imperfections in the sense, at this stage, when you come to this stage, your practice has developed to a greater extent, and you start observing a very attractive phenomena, right? So the first one, they are progressive. The first one, you may start seeing a lot of lights and a lot of illuminations. And then if it goes further, you may feel that you have released, or you may feel that you have enlightened. You may feel that you have gained so much knowledge. And when it goes further, you may have a lot of rapturous happiness, or it may go into then a tranquil state, and then it may be very blissful, and then you will get absorbed into that bliss. And then when this happens, you will practice day and night. So you will have so much of energy to do it, because it is giving what you were looking for. And then you will see, whenever I sit, yes, my mindfulness is so sharp, it keeps going, and I will have to maintain it so meticulously. And then you feel, when this is happening, I have the highest equanimity, I am the man. And this will be so attractive, and it creates something called nikanti, which means you will have a magnetic attachment to this phenomena. So these are signs of the progress on one hand, but on the other hand, they are so attractive that you may take the wrong path, and you may think that you are realized. And that is what happened during Buddha's time. There were some ascetics who had concluded that they had attained because of these things. But what Buddha did was, he identified that these things are again stations of craving. And then what he did was, you will have to now understand what is and what is not the path. All this way you have come on the path. When you come here, you will have to introduce mindfulness to these things as well. So when you have light, you will have to be mindful of that. When you have rapturous happiness, you will have to be mindful of that. When you feel that you have, when there is a thought that you have a knowledge, mindful of that. So all these things, you become mindful, you bring your mindfulness to the fore. Once you do that, then you are on the right path. Then you have selected what is and what is not the path. So that happens when you get close to the reality, when you let this changing phenomena happen, when you allow non-self, the things that happens when the self is not there happen, right? And when you don't take this changing phenomena as suffering, right? So this way of purification of what is and what is not the path leads now to the way, now to the right way of your practice. Now, when you come to the, I don't know whether they gave him some alcohol. It was so strong. And anyway, so this leads to the purity in terms of knowledge and vision of the way, and that has again, that the purity in terms of knowledge and vision itself has 9 steps. And in those nine steps are the knowledge of rise and fall, knowledge of dissolution, knowledge of appearance as terror, knowledge of danger, knowledge of dispassion, knowledge of desire for deliverance, knowledge of reflection, and knowledge of equanimity of formations and conformity knowledge. So even of these 9 things, we have discussed the first 2, but if I give you a summary, when it comes to knowledge of rise and fall, what happens there is, since you have allowed the changing phenomena to take place, when the breath was getting subtler, you are not panicking and you allowed that to happen. Then when you were having so much of unpleasant pain, you just endured it, you just observed it, and that gradually subsided. And when you are having so much of thoughts, you just let the thoughts flow, but you simply kept on observing. So after, when you do all these things, what happens is the intensity of those things will gradually come down, and it will come down to this reality level, the changing level. And the changing level goes to such an extent that you see all these things arise and pass away. And you see, when your attention is with the breath is also so subtle, and you feel the entire body. The body is having bit of a bubbling sensation. It is having very soothing, massaging, tingling sensation, right? Or you may feel as if some water is falling in a pond, or you will have some appearing and disappearing sensation, maybe in the form of form, or maybe in the form of feeling, or it may be in the form of thoughts. So when you see this rising and falling, what you simply see is the quality of impermanence. And it has been mentioned in the 4 foundations discourse. There are 4 foundations which are called body, feelings, mind, and the phenomena. In all these 4, what the Blessed One says is, when you have your attention perfectly on any of those things, or all of those things, it will end up only at this stage. What stage? The stage of rise and fall. Your mindfulness is so sharp, and with the sharp mindfulness, you will see things are arising and passing away, arising and passing away, arising and passing away. And that is the quality of impermanence. And that is the changing nature. And that is the way how one thing is turning into something else. Because you're observing the gross breath. Now you see some sensation of the body, right? So that breath itself has changed into something else. Not that this has completely, a new thing has appeared. No, through the breath, you now observe another dilution into energy layer. Earlier it was very gross and very concrete. Now, because of your perfect attention, you see the energy layer of the same thing. So, changing phenomena, you let it happen, and as a result, you see rise and fall. So, not only rise and fall, when you see rise and fall, the Blessed One says, it is not only impermanence, you also at the same time see the suffering. How you see the suffering is, Blessed One says, what is impermanent is suffering. If something is impermanent, it naturally makes you suffer. How it makes you suffer is, impermanence is the changing nature, rising and falling nature, appearing and disappearing nature, and that appearing and disappearing nature creates a friction. And since it is changing into something, since it is turning into something, so this friction requires continuous servicing or continuous greasing to avoid the friction. That is what we do for our vehicle, right? So even here, we have such servicing, such greasing system, and that is called mental fabrication. So when we sit for a long time, and because of this impermanence, and we start feeling certain places are aching, certain places are painful, what we do is, without our knowledge, we change the posture. That type of subtle fabrication is going on. And from that, we avoid suffering. We hide the suffering. And it is constant, because changing is constant. And therefore, suffering is also constant. So therefore, for the Blessed One, for us to see it, he says, no, just sit. Don't change your posture, and be as static as possible, as motionless as possible, as quiet as possible. And then these things will come up, and you will be able to go through suffering. And when you keep on observing, you're observing suffering. It may be at the physical level, and when it goes deeper, it goes to the mental layer as well, and certain things are happening in your mind. You feel might as well stop practicing mindfulness, because it becomes so digging into your mentality, right? So that is because you are seeing the friction, and since you see the friction, since you see the friction because you see the impermanence, and since you don't do any mental fabrication, you can see the suffering. But still you continue. When you keep on continuing, what happens is you start seeing the characteristic of your inability to exercise control over this physical and mental process, physical and mental phenomena. So then you gradually, slowly, you change your attitude towards the fact that there is self, that there is someone controlling, that there is some spirit controlling. You start, when you longer you sit, more you do it, more frequently you do it, you start seeing it more and more again, more and more again, more and more again. Then your attitude gradually, very slowly starts changing, right? So that is, again, another reality that you will see when you get used to this rising and observation of rising and falling. More you observe rising and falling, more you see that. And that leads to, because you continuously see only rising and falling, and as a result, you have certain realization of impermanence, non-self, and suffering. And that leads to the next knowledge of the way, which is the knowledge of dissolution. That is what we discussed last time. So when you allow this to happen continuously, it happens so fast, and at a point, you may see things are more disappearing than appearing, because now you don't do mental fabrication. Only thing you do is you simply keep observing. When you keep observing, the fabrication stops. When fabrication stops, you see the disappearing side more rather than the appearing side. And as a result, you see not only the object that you are watching is disappearing, the mind that is observing is also disappearing. And you see both these are disappearing. Observing this process, therefore, witnesses the disappearance and destruction of all things and everything. This leading to the vision of complete explosion or bang or dissolution. Because when you keep on observing, you see everything is disappearing, disappearing, disappearing. You don't care, you simply keep observing. And continuous observation makes you to see more and more destruction. So you see more and more destructions, and all of a sudden you may see complete destruction of the physical process, or complete bang, big bang will happen. and you will surprise what happened to me, and you will immediately open your eyes and see. If you are scared, immediately open your eyes and see whether my pieces are there. Yeah, all the pieces are there, and you will once again sit and start observing. And if it goes in the right way, these things will happen. This will happen once again. Now, since it has happened once, now you are ready to face it, and you let it go. And if you are ready to face it, and if you see the phenomena, and if you are not scared, and if you are happy about what is happening, then it becomes a knowledge. Otherwise, just because having it won't become a knowledge if you are scared and if you are not ready to face it, right? So when the mindfulness has become that sharp, you are ready to face that challenge. So when this happens, the observation of your reality goes a bit further, right? Now you have not only realized that things are impermanent, you have dropped the notion of permanence, since you have seen everything has led to destruction, and you have dropped the notion of pleasure. You see, everything is leading to suffering. And because we are made from mental fabrication, so whatever we have is leading us to suffering only. And then you drop the notion of self, or that I have control over, that there is some spirit doing everything. You drop that notion, and you yourself has seen that there is no self. And when you keep on observing, it goes into pieces. It is an experience, and there is no need of scientific evidence or research paper telling you that it has to happen so, because you yourself has experienced. It is first-hand experience. And because of these things, your mentality changes in relation to everything that you have been commending so far. Everything we have, our properties and our dear and near one, everything we possess, we commend them so much. But now that commendable mentality gradually subsides, and you see disgust in everything, and especially not outside. You see the disgust in yourself, in your own bodily process, in your own mental process. And it also, therefore, leads to the detachment compared to the attachment we have been having. So people resign from their jobs, and those things will happen, and it goes again. We think when everything we are attached to, everything we can construct, and everything can be kept permanent, and that also changes. You see more and more annihilation, and your mentality changes because you drop those notions of permanence, drop the notion of self, drop the notion of pleasure. And this dropping, or this observation due to the dissolution, brings out another aspect. That is, you are terrified now because all these things are happening. That is called knowledge of terror, or knowledge of appearance as terror, right? So what are you terrorized of are the 5 aggregates. What are the 5 aggregates? Body, feelings, perceptions, mental fabrications, and the consciousness. Those are the 5 things by which we are made of, physical and mental processes, right? So we are the person who is practicing. Now, these are not relevant to the people in the sensual world. These are relevant to mindfulness practitioners only. These are not relevant to those who are trying to develop their concentration. Because once they are concentrated, when they get those imperfections, they think they are done and dusted. So they will not go into detail. This detail. Now, this is relevant to those who have come to the real way, right? They have selected the path. Now, this is the way, and it becomes a terror. And what is the terror? The terror arises in the sign of these 5 aggregates, right? So when you see that there is some pain, when you see that that your bodily formation is there, it is not just the gross body or the gross pain. When you practice, you're going to certain states, and even in those states, you think you feel. I mean, your mind accept that having this sign, impermanent sign, what's the use? And not only the sign, the terror arises in the continuation of the 5 aggregates. If I'm just keep on looking at it, which does not give the pleasure I'm looking for, which keeps changing, and it is a terror for him, because he has seen the impermanence, because he has seen the reality, the 3 things affecting reality. And the terror arises because of both these. And not only we have the sign, not only we have the continuation, both these are continuing. So he is more and more terrorized. So therefore, he doesn't want to become anything. He doesn't want to become person observing that cool feeling, having that cool sensation, or having that quiet place in the mind, right? So therefore, he doesn't want to become anything in the material or immaterial world. So he will be terrorized by that as well. And thought might arise in his mind when you keep on observing at this stage. This is happening now, and this is exactly what happened in the past. And this will happen if I continue to just get stuck here. This will continue even into the future. And when that judgment, at that moment of thinking, it becomes a knowledge. Which moment? It is not only happening now, it has happened in the past, it will happen in the future as well. Then it is a knowledge, not just terror, not that you are scared of the sign or the continuation of both. That is converted into a knowledge because you have seen the full spectrum of it, past, present, and the future. That leads to the next knowledge, the knowledge of danger. Right? So the danger he sees is because he is practicing, seeing the terror in the sign or the continuation and becoming in the material and immaterial world leads to the realization of danger. So the absence of sign, because if there is a danger in those 3, he feels the absence of the sign, the non-continuation and non-becoming is the immaterial pleasure, is the heaven, is the extinguishing. It's danger here. It's knowledge of danger because he is the alternative for the problem as well. We in our perception, when we see danger, it is without a solution. But here, he has the problem as well. He sees the solution. He thinks and he realizes not only the danger, but he realizes that there is a way out as well, right? So at that point where his attitude changes, that there is a danger as well as a way out, then that is the knowledge of danger. It is not danger, it is the knowledge of danger, because he has seen the gate to go out of it. And when you have the knowledge of danger. That leads to the next knowledge, which is called knowledge of dispassion. So that word is having the meaning in itself. It is the dispassion. This happens as a result of appreciation of dangers of the sign, continuation, and the becoming material and immaterial worlds. Material and immaterial world means when you practice the states that you go into. It may be a material state. Now, by material, we don't mean the sensual world at all. Here we are strictly talking about the states that we go into when we practice. And even there, you have seen the danger in the sign and the continuation and its becoming, and the practitioner will be dispassionate about all these worlds, all these states. And therefore, they are giving how he becomes dispassionate through a simile. The simile they mention is just as a golden swan that delights in the 7 lakes in the foothills of Chitta Peak. Chitta Peak is a mountain in the Himalayas, and they have, it seems, beautiful 7 lakes, and golden swan delights there, right? Not in the filthy puddle at the gate of a village of outcasts. Right? That is how sees those states that you have gained. How? Through the meditation, by giving up your sensual pleasures, by giving up your sensual desires, by giving up a lot of things that you have achieved in the practice, you have come to a state, and that state is considered as a filthy puddle at the gate of village of an outcast. And he has developed that simile so nicely. So too is the practitioner finds the delight in his development in the practice. So he keeps the mindfulness to the fore, and having the dispassion, therefore, he considers that as an achievement, because you don't go to the filthy puddle anymore. You have 7 legs. So dispassion is that. That's how the book is explaining it. So therefore, it is very important for the practitioners to know that when your practice is developing, it will develop dispassion. So you will have to expect that, because when we practice, we don't think that dispassion will develop. And the people are teaching mindfulness to say that this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. You become a leader, and you will be able to memorize everything, and you will have what you call highest labor efficiency, and all sorts of funny things are given. But what the Blessed One says is, you may go to dispassion. You may see the toxicity of everything, and you will have to be very mindful of that. And as a result, by this time, your mindfulness has gone to the highest level. Now it is leading to Nibbana. So therefore, when this happens, if you have not if you have not been practicing mindfulness, keeping the mindfulness to the fore, then there will have questions in your head. What we learn here is to keep the mindfulness to the fore. When you keep the mindfulness to the fore, no matter whatever comes in your mind, you just label it. You just become mindful of it, and you go through that. So therefore, at this stage, it is not only you achieve, you should also be able to remember that what I do is become mindful. What becoming mindful means, let anything happen, I just observe. And you don't observe now intentionally. Right? That intention of observation also faded away. You just simply let things happen and just sit or be as if something is happening in your neighbor's house or something is happening somewhere else, not to you, right? So that much of equanimity will come into the picture when this dispassion quality is developing within you, right? So therefore, those are things that you will have to keep in mind. Dispassion will come when the dispassion comes. Be mindful of that as well. And if you are not mindful, if you don't keep the mindfulness to the fore, then this discussion is very important. Most of the time, our mind will try to put something into our head and take us some other way, right? And then if the discussion is not there, then everybody is stuck. Therefore, the Blessed One said, discussion is a supportive factor. Blessed One told Venerable Ananda, you must always have a noble friend. Otherwise, this path cannot be done on your own unless you are going to become Samma Sambuddha, self-realized Buddha, right? So we are struggling to learn what he taught. So let's forget about the self-realization. So therefore, at these stages, we will have to be very mindful of those things. So I hope I did some justice to the practice, especially to the newcomers joining today. May you all be able to develop your practice up to this level and even further and achieve the best possible by practicing mindfulness. Blessings of the Noble Triple Gem to all of you. With that, I will sum up my talk. And if any of you are having something to discuss, now is the time. So either here or in Zoom, it's open now.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Everyone, Saranayaka.
Don't say that, sir. I might have a couple of questions regarding my practice. Oh, sorry. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just had like a couple of doubts in my practice in the last week.
Yeah.
It was I think it was like a couple of days ago. I kind of lost the motivation to do the practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like if I had these thoughts where like I'll be fine without it. Because the practice was like putting more fear into my head.
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh, if I just like take some time off the practice for a while and just relax,
yeah.
I might like it might ease off this like stress and anxiety and stuff.
Yeah.
So for a couple of days I was sitting around, I was doing fine.
Yeah.
And but I think it was today, like Dad showed me like a talk and he was like, oh, like maybe try keep up with the practice again.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like I kind of forced myself through it. And
Yeah.
like I felt like I had to get through this like really tough barrier, like during my walking meditation. Like it got really tough.
Yeah.
So I just kept pushing through it. And yeah, during the seated meditation as well.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, like, so when you're on the path, like is it possible to like deviate from, the path, like, fall into something else?
Yeah. Now, now you are saying the sitting was tough and the walking was tough.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Why are you saying it was tough?
When I was walking, I started feeling like a huge detachment from my dad and stuff.
Yeah.
Something I hadn't felt before. So it was like started feeling like very lonely.
Yeah.
So like I started feeling like I was very isolated. There was nothing else. So it was like very tough emotions, but like, and yeah, started feeling pain around my neck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I pushed through that. And then finally I felt like I got to where I was before I stopped the practice like a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the seated meditation, there was movements again, and I started gagging and like started throwing up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't like vomit coming out, but there was like like water and saliva. Like I was just trying to like it was kind of like purging a lot of energies.
Right.
But yeah, I stuck through it. But
Yeah.
there have been like few times in the last week where, you know, the practice got really tough. Like I wasn't even sitting. Like there was times where like I was just like lying on the floor, like on my back. My
Yeah.
legs were lifted up.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's like that's still fine. I was still like facing some kind of pain, but it was like a weird position that like my body chose to target that pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like it was like those kind of things that like put this fear in my head. So now every time I do the practice, like I'm kind of scared at the same time.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that's
the
all.
yeah. That's not what happens is when we practice. What we basically do is our physical and mental processes are having certain connections for our lives to go on. The connection that
Yeah,
we have for our life to go on is, in one word, is called the clinging, right?
mm,
We are so attached to things.
yeah,
It is not that you are attached to your father or your parents or your family. You are attached to your emotions so much, and since you are attached to your emotions so much, um, when those while observing, what you do is you simply allow these things to come up, and you don't show that you have any attachment. If what we simply do is observation, when
mm,
you keep on observing, that those attachments gets challenged. So when they get
yeah,
challenged, all your emotional stock gets shaken up. So as a result, you may feel that you are not in this world. You may feel
mm,
that everything that you had is fading away, is losing. What happens
yeah,
is, it is you lose the clinging that you have. You lose the craving that you have, and those are the things that we have developed all this time. But because of the practice of observation, those clingings are fading away. And when those clingings are fading away, those clingings have appeared in our system as some form of energy, some form of negative energy. And then those negative energies, which are not at work, gets gets visible, and they become more and more tangible to you. So some
okay,
people, when those things are happening, some people start shaking their head, and some people start vibrating. Some people, some people feel much of so much of pressure in the body, and some people just fall down and crawling like snakes, and
mm,
so many weird things are happening. So that is because those negative energies are at work now. And if someone who is not meditating, and sometimes even those who meditate, when they see those things, and they think the meditation has gone wrong, and it is not that the meditation has gone wrong. When the practice is going well, when the negative energies are shaken up, and when the negative energies are to be flushed out, you feel those things, and then you think it is not normal. And
yeah,
especially throwing up, and sometimes loose motions might happen, because it is
mm,
the physical cleansing also happening at the same time, because from our negative energies we have created a lot of unwanted negative pus in our body. So that is why you were saying phlegm was coming out. I remember there was a
yeah,
time when I was practicing, I felt my head like a glacier, right? So much of water is coming from my head, and it is getting accumulated into my mouth, right?
mm,
It keeps happening because that physical cleansing is happening. We are sending our mind through each and every micro cell in our body. So this glue of craving, the phlegm, is gradually breaking down. And once it breaks down, it keeps falling. It's like, melting ice. So you melt the saliva, you melt the phlegm that you have in your body. And when this happens to someone in your age, since don't have much experiences, we get scared. What the hell is going to happen to me? Is the thing that directly comes to your mind. And if you talk to doctors and if you talk to some people, they might upset you more. Right? So when these things are happen, this is where Buddha's personality has to be with us, right? So these are things that the Buddha have achieved without eating a single morsel of food into his tummy. During the 6 months when he was 6 years when he was experimenting, he just ate only something that fell near him. It may be a dried leaf or it may be half dried leaf, and he struggled so much to realize this. And after realizing, he told us, there is no need for you guys to go to this extreme. You will have to simply keep the mindfulness to the fore. When you keep the mindfulness to the fore, all these type of things will happen. And then you will have to be mindful of that as well. Whatever mental interpretation that your mind is giving, simply label it. If you are afraid, if you feel fear, just label that I am afraid. Just accept it. And since there is some sort of a reaction, only it becomes a problem. Now, when you are listening today, you may have seen the words they are using are so scary. The words they are using is terror. Right? So if you accept this shaky nature, when you see the impermanence, when you see the non-self, when you see the suffering, we usually get shaken up, because we have been thinking that everything in our existence is so perfect and so pleasurable. And we have been thinking that everything that we have is under our control, and I am the boss, and I am the man, and I am the leader. Now you gradually start seeing that it is not so. And all of us are thinking that this is made of diamond and nobody can crack it. But you see, it is not so. So when those things are happening, you become terrorized. And when you see that terror, if your mind is not suggesting that, mind very rarely suggests that, but if you keep the mindfulness to the fore, at some point you will see, if I am continuing this damn life, I will continue this very same thing into the future. This is exactly what has happened in the past. Now is an opportunity. I am seeing this unshaky nature of my existence. And if you have that thought, in that moment, that terror, that fear becomes a knowledge. And then when you have not only the knowledge, you have the knowledge of the danger. Terror is a danger, but you know non-existence is an answer. And you know non-continuation is an answer. Non-becoming is an answer. And those answers are taken not through any other means, but by being mindful. Right? So how you become mindful is any danger that comes to your mind, you just become aware of it. You just become mindful of it. You just let things, whatever happen. These are phenomena that is taking place. And the thought of detachment from your father is just a thought. How long did it last? It may have lasted 1/100th of a second. but it has made so much impact to your mental process. And it was made such a big thing in the mind. But if you see the age of that, inconsiderable. So we give value to those things. That is because there was a space that we were not able to be mindful. If we were able to mindful, instead of giving a value to that, then that thought will have no chance to stay in your mental process. So therefore, the simple answer, whatever mental phenomena that you feel, don't be in a hurry, but very slowly accept it as it is and be happy about the fact that you know it. When your practice is developing, all what you see is negativity, because we have developed this existence only through negativities, only through clinging. So you start seeing those clingings. So you just label it as it is.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry I took a long time to explain it, but I think
no, it was a good explanation.
Worthwhile.
I needed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Yeah. And you will, you will have to either yes, come closer or, Here's your face.
Yeah, there it is. So yeah, I've got like maybe 2 or 3, not really questions, because I feel like 2 of those sort of got answered in your discourse when you were talking before. So thank you. I will bring them up though, even though they pretty much got answered. But the first part of it was basically just the separation between my meditation and going to my workplace. Just the sort of struggles. It actually got brought up a few weeks ago in class as well. I didn't speak up, and I probably should have, because now I'm dealing with the same situation. So it's just basically my 2 days off, I focus on my meditation. You know, quite a lot, probably too much in a day, to be honest. But I enjoy that because I'm getting good benefits from my meditation, especially my sitting meditation. However, when I go back to work those 5 or 6 days of my week, I find myself struggling in the battle of, everyday people, conversations, topics, jokes, laughter with, just everyday people in my workplace. But it sort of, when I come back from my 2 days of meditating, I sort of get into a nice, comfortable place, or a path, you could say, which I'm happy about. And then within, a few minutes to an hour of going to work, there's conversations, there's joking around, there's swearing, there's this, that, and the other. And it's, it just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. But listening to your discourse, it sounds to me a lot like it's more of just being mindful of, when I'm at work, be part of everything, but just be mindful about what I speak, what I say, how I listen to things. And I think that, like I said, I think you've actually summed it up in your discourse. So thank you for that.
And I may add a little bit to that as well. Can you all hear me? Yeah. What I would add is, we all are work in progress. None of us are a complete product. So this is a transitional stage. So in this transitional stage, we have come from the sensual world to the meditating world, if I may say so. And in that meditative world, we have experienced, or we have gained a state which is much more pleasurable than the sensual world. But we can't live without the sensual world, because we have got to pay our bills. So when we go to that sensual world, our achievement is hugely challenged and it is affected. So therefore, you see very clearly the difference between the two alternatives that we are in now. You see, one is so toxic and the other one is so smooth. So this is definitely, although you see it as a question and a problem, but this is definitely the beginning of the answer. Why I say beginning of the answer is because now you know the problem. When you know the problem, it is easy to find the solution. How you find the solution is you will have to keep on practicing the mindfulness. But the way you spelled out your question is having some bias towards the practice. And you have gained something and you love it so much. And therefore, you have generated hatred towards breaking of it by going to work.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, the practice has to continue in this toxic world, and how that will happen is you should get used to seeing your attachment to the practice, your love towards the achievement in the practice.
Yeah.
And when you see that, be mindful of it. Don't try to get rid of it, but don't try to avoid it. Just be aware that I am so attached to this.
Yeah.
And by being aware of the attachment, you gradually reduce your hatred as well.
Yeah.
So in this manner, when the attachment towards the practice is under control by way of being mindful, hatred will also be there. Hatred will also reduce, and therefore you may be able to be in the same world, but you may feel that you work like a zombie.
Yeah.
But you will be able to live in both worlds, like those animals who can live in water as well as in land, like frogs.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't want water. So some animals, fish can't come into the land; they will die. So we are not going to be a fish. We are going to be a frog. Both the worlds, or crocodile, to be or safe, right? We can live in land and even in water. So you see this because you are in the transitional stage, and it is an important observation for the progress. On one hand, you are progressing, and on the other hand, there is a bit more to do.
Yeah.
And in that bit more, bringing the mindfulness to this phenomena is more important rather than complaining. But the complaining is what the mind is doing. So therefore, that discussion is imperative.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
One more while I've got you. This one's a little unusual, I suppose. Well, for me it is anyway. Like I just mentioned before, the meditation that I've been doing lately is really good. I get like a feeling of bliss, and I sort of, if I focus on maybe after 20 minutes of meditation anyway, but after I've done my body scanning, I get like my body's nice and relaxed, and then I can sort of focus on say a kneecap or a shin, a thigh, or whatever it is, a foot. And then I get like a really like nice, relaxed feeling, and that's what's getting me addicted to my meditation. Before I was getting that though, I was getting like, before I had those feelings, I was getting like strange, like memories. I think they were repressed memories from like when I was really young, like a baby, or maybe like a toddler or something. Like I had images and visions of like just random things would pop up, like me picking green strawberries from my grandma's like greenhouse in England, and I don't even know if I was able to speak. And then another time, like I was sitting on a stairway because I think my auntie told me off because I said something bad to my cousin. And I wasn't that Steve, but I was like a third person overlooking that little baby, even though I knew that was me.
Yeah.
Can you sort of give me some insight or shine a bit of light onto what that is?
Yeah. No, when actually the practice is happening, before Buddha, there were two stages. Some people see their past and develop their view. And this is why in this discourse, they are talking about purification of the view.
Yeah.
Right? So they develop view, okay, that was me, and previous life, yeah, that was me, life after that, that was me, and they come to the view that me exists and me is forever.
So in a sense, it's not a defilement, but in a sense, it's like the purification of view is like...
No. It's a defilement.
It is.
It is a defilement, because if you start pondering this, if you get gradually attached to this, what you feel is, it's definitely coming from the practice. What you are doing is you are clearing your garbage. When you clear your garbage, when the top part is gone, the thing that you have put last week will come. And when that is taken out, things that you have put month before will come. So like that, it will keep going down. And you start seeing more and more compost stuff. And you feel, I can use this for something. And you start loving it and doing a business with it.
Yeah.
And then you go on to previous lives, so many lives, so many eons.
Yeah.
And the practice has gone and people have got stuck. And there's a separate discourse by the Buddha called Brahmajala discourse. And it's you can't believe what people have said.
What was it? Brahmajala.
Brahmajala. So therefore, when these things are happening, again, Panadol.
Panadol?
Yes. Mindfulness to the fore. That's like Panadol.
Yeah.
So you just, because the mind is now trying to find something to cling on. Right? So that happens because you have given space for the mind to keep thinking, to mind to get snowballed into. So that space comes when you are not aware.
So it's trying to find something.
It has already found and trying to take you. So what you will have to do is, you will have to simply label aware. I know. Then that interpretation cannot continue because that mental energy is not there. You have broken that gap, broken that space. You call it okasa in part. Right? So that tiny gap is enough for it to create ignorance, and that is called ignorance. But when you simply say aware in that particular moment, ignorance on which this is building gets shattered.
Right, okay.
And then it just slithers down.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes.
I really appreciate
it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Very, very helpful.
Thank you. To only your face.
Really.
Right. Okay. Go ahead. I think you're a bit too far away.
Oh, okay. I'll indeed sit on this little ledge then.
That would be good. Yes.
Yeah. So I've mentioned before to you that it's very difficult for me to do the listening part of the practice.
Yeah.
And I did notice today that it was a little bit easier. And I think that's because you're actually here in person. And so I think that, yes, I mean, I've already said before, I just find it so difficult to be interested. That's the first thing, but just really difficult to be interested. Also, you know, it's long. It's like a really long discourse. I'm thinking, oh, no, this is so long. And then I'm also sometimes unable to understand a certain word.
Yes.
And that could be because I'm British person
Yeah.
and you're from Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And I think it's also potentially because of the quality of the recording.
Yeah.
Because certainly today was much, much easier for me to listen.
Maintain the connection.
Really, really listen properly. Yeah, that was a lot easier. So I wanted to say that to begin with. What do you think about that?
I mean, you have noticed why it is happening. It's just the presence. It's just my presence, and there is someone someone live talking to you, rather,
yes.
rather than from thousands of miles away.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's the mental acceptance.
Yeah, and I
it
mean,
is not just my presence.
Powerful. It's very powerful.
That's not my presence. It is your mental acceptance.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that actually. If I'm in an empty room, somebody walks in, it just has the most enormous effect on me. Oh my goodness, this person. It's quite extraordinary, actually. Okay, so the next thing to say is that I was listening. I've listened very often about the life of Buddha, and you were talking about all of these stages that people go through, and it just seems. It doesn't seem fun. It really doesn't seem much fun at all. And it also seems, it doesn't seem joyous. It seems kind of depressing and boring. And so I'd love you to comment on that.
Yes. And the word joyous, word happiness, word pleasure, all that, we have some conditioned understanding, right? What Buddha taught simply was the very same thing we are looking for, but in a different way. He summed up his finding in four statements: truth of suffering, reason for suffering, eradication of suffering, and the way to eradicate suffering. So in all four, the word he using is suffering. He never said truth of happiness or reason for happiness, because if he had done that, he has not seen what actually is. What we have is the suffering. So if we see the suffering, then that is the answer. What we instead we do is, we are looking for joy. When we look for joy, we create more and more suffering. Because we don't see, I mean, let me put it this way. What is the meaning of happiness? Is the absence of unhappiness.
Maybe it's enjoying the unhappiness.
Enjoying unhappiness is what we are doing.
So that's the practice.
No, that is the normal living. The sensual world means enjoying the unhappiness. Now you were working. Why did you resign? Because it is more cool. Having a relaxed life is much better than suffering in the office.
But not working is also horrible.
That's exactly right. That's the point.
Yes, I'll come to that.
But I mean, no.
No.
Maybe working is wonderful and not working is wonderful. Maybe they're both wonderful, or maybe they're both awful. Why don't you choose the nice one? They're both wonderful.
Second one is the correct one. Both are suffering, but now you have come from gross suffering to a subtle suffering. There is a discourse by the Buddha called Sunyata Sutta. That is, Sunyata means void, I think. And what it says is, when you are in the sensual world, you have all the problems of the sensual world. When you have something, it has rewards. And at the same time, there are risks as well. And we don't talk about the risk. We try to maximize the reward and suffer more. But what we do is, in the seclusion, when we come to a place like this, you leave your sensual world out and you come here. So when you come here, you don't have any suffering that you would have had at home or wherever you will be. But there is some suffering here. You will have to sit for a long time. You will have to keep listening to, that fellow keep talking, never ending. And you can't concentrate. That is also suffering. But you don't have so much of suffering that you had before. You have only this suffering. And when that is going on, just imagine you are able to bring your attention to your breath. Even all that suffering will go. You will have only the friction that is created by the breath. So like that, suffering is a truth, but it goes to, when you go subtler, and you will see subtle suffering. Now, when Thanuka was talking earlier, his attention is so much in the practice, and he sees how the detachments are happening from his mentality, and gets scared. That is how you see suffering. And when that energy starts working in your body, you feel that you are going to get choked. You are going to die in the next second. What you see is suffering. Right? So, and our mind is trying to say, this bloody path is not joyful. And this is an awful path. And mind is giving all those things because mind wants to create as much suffering as possible so that it can exist.
I just think that Buddhists seem to be trying to become like Buddha, and he doesn't seem very happy to me. So I'm thinking, like, why are we trying to become like him? Like, you're trying not to exist. Existing's rubbish.
No, the Buddha has been asked this question. Buddha, someone came and asked, "Are you unhappy?" And then he has said, "For loss of what?"
For loss of what?
What? You should be unhappy if you have lost something. If you don't gain something.
So he's got nothing to lose.
That is his answer. His answer was a question. For loss of what? And then the person asked, "Are you happy? For gaining what?"
Well, why has he got a smile? I don't know what. He's like smiling a little bit.
Yeah,
he looks a little bit happy.
Little bit happy.
Not really much, but
not
a little bit.
much happy, because we need a lot of happiness. So we need only one side of the equation. We need all positives, no negatives at all. Right? And if you go to the negatives, we want the other side. But when you come to zero, you have all the qualities. In zero, you have both the possibility of negatives and positives.
So then you just do a tiny smile.
It's just a tiny smile.
Yeah. I prefer the big one.
I know what British people prefer. There is another British man looking at me.
Well, anyway, all the same, thank you for your answers.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Very insightful. All right, so we have taken quite a bit of time, and for the last time I will ask whether there is any question in the Zoom. Right, so if there are no questions, we will be able to pass this wonderful energies we have generated today and pass merits to the rest of the universe. To do that, whom are you talking to? All right, so to pass the merits, so can I request Thanuka Putta to chant his verses, please?